Peace and welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, we got to talk about the College Board and how they have decided to abolish their Diversity Council. We'll share with you the latest about that and get to check in with my man Shanadu before to get his take on this DEI attack. So we'll have that conversation. Also, we'll talk about FBI informants being paid to infiltrate Black Lives Matter. Opening the conversation, is COINTELPRO back? We'll talk about the controversial historic program that disrupted civil rights organizations. And later, we talk about Michael B. Jordan and the idea of being corny. Why is it so bad to be good and decent as a man? Yeah, I'm going to get into that discussion as well. So stay with us, all of that and a whole lot more on today's edition of The Culture, right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. All right, folks, welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Happy Friday, folks. Happy Friday. Man, oh man, we got us. Now we're at this point at the end of the week, folks. End of the week. All right, folks, we're going to have a lot of great conversations set up for you. So let's jump right into it. First and foremost, let me share with you the latest about what's going on in the state of Florida and College Board. Now, this is the group. College Board is that group of folks that decide the curriculum and the overall direction of the studies for high school and college, for high school students around the country. And College Board has decided to go forward on abolishing their diversity and inclusion programs targeted, which was a huge target by conservatives in the state. Let me share with you the latest on this situation. Then we bring in culture crew member Shanadu Akorfo on it. Take a look at this, folks. Here it is. Now, the trustees were picked by the Republican governor, Ron DeSantis, and this is what's coming out of Associated Press. The trustees voted 9-3. They were picked by Ron DeSantis to oversee New College of Florida, voted Tuesday to abolish its small office that handles diversity, equity, and inclusion programs targeted by conservatives throughout the state university system. Now, the trustees voted 9-3 to get rid of the school's Office of Outreach and Inclusive Excellence, with 4 full-time staff positions to be transferred elsewhere to vacant jobs. The board also voted to permit interim president Richard Corrigan to consider ending a single online mandatory employee diversity training program that few actually take. This is going along with, folks, what we've been seeing all across this country, but that has been spearheaded by the state of Florida, and making sure that the talk about Black history, the talk about diversity and inclusion, the talk about LGBTQI and all of these other marginalized groups, that the history and everything about each of these groups are not in full discussion as part of the curriculum for colleges, for high school and college age students. So this is a major blow to trying to move forward in a time where there has been so much talk about the importance of diversity and the attack on Black history in particular. Now College Board decides to eliminate the very thing that will give people some sense of hope that they're going to, that the things are moving forward, that progress is being made. Here to talk to us about this is my culture crew member for the day, Brother Shanadu Akorfo, who is a diversity, equity, and inclusion specialist. He can give us some insight as to what's happening. And is this a trend that we should expect to see happening around the country? Let's bring in my brother Shanadu. Shanadu, good to see you, bro. How you
feeling? Good to see you, Faraj. How you feeling?
Yes, sir. All right, Shanadu, let's talk a little bit about situation. First and foremost, College Board being in the space that they're in. They frown upon DEI. This is the work that you do, bro. They frown upon it. They decide to eliminate the small office. What does this say to you as a DEI specialist? Does this mean that College Board is officially have said, yes, we are going to whitewash history?
Well, I think what College Board is doing is a mistake, and I don't want to limit it to whitewashing. It's just eliminating a part of the story. I always tell people, when you want to think about DEI and not having the full story in a textbook or in some type of historical document, I always tell people I'm a type A person, so I always tell people to do this, and then tell me the story of what you see, and then remove the other hand and tell me the story. What they're doing is they're blinding part of the story, and it's a lot of danger there, because what is being happened is this idea of everybody is trying to make white people feel bad for what they did, or make them feel bad for their whiteness, or what have you. When in all honesty, it's not about what you did, it's about what you continue to do. And this is an effort to stifle Black growth, because everybody says things of, not everybody, many folks say things of around this of, oh, it's too much Blackness. We'll say things like there's too much this on TV and it's too much that. And I always question people, what were we watching before? For how many years has there only been just one thing? So it's the major issue here is when it comes to, and I will say it, Black people and their history, there seems to be an affinity to say, let's not talk about it. You couldn't go to Auschwitz, you couldn't go to Germany, you couldn't go to Cologne, you couldn't go to Poland and not discuss about Nazis. There's no way that's leaving history. But somehow when it comes to Black folks and how the government, the greatest government of all times, sidelined one particular group of people, all of a sudden we're doing too much. And then people are kowtowing to it for political aggrandizement.
Well, and I think that's the big problem, bro. That is the big problem. Look, I want to take a quick pause. When we come forward, I want us to continue to go in depth with this, and of course, I want to hear from the crew to have we get their take on it. But what do you think about this idea of College Board deciding to abolish their diversity of officers? Make sure you post your comments in the chat, and let's continue the conversation here on The Culture, right here on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
Pull up a chair, take your seat to the Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. We've been talking about College Board deciding to abolish their diversity office and the implication of this. And does this open up the door for us to have a whitewash history for students in the state of Florida in particular, to have a whitewash history and a whitewash view of things? We've been checking in with our brother Chinedu Wakorfor, who is a diversity, equity, and inclusion specialist, to get his take on this latest move by the state government of Florida and what this may mean. Shanita, you bring up the fact that this is a slippery slope, and more importantly, this is like opening up the door for a dangerous precedent, bro, where if you have the organization that's responsible for determining the curriculum for thousands upon thousands of students, and they're deciding that they're going to silence the voices of those who are outside of the majority, not include them into their curriculum. This is an all-out attack, and this is a level of attack where if you think about it from a historical perspective, one of the big things that I've learned about Black history is that a lot of your major Black leaders, and I'm thinking of like Brother Marcus Garvey, where he often talked about, going to use education as a way to teach and train Black babies how to think differently or outside of the system. That we can't, if you really want to uproot white supremacy in this country, bro, that you have to start with the babies. It can't start with trying to deprogram adults. And so when I read this story, for me, it was like, wow, this is a way of programming our children to think the opposite, to not think well of themselves, to not empower them, but to make them feel less than, to make them feel inferior. And this is really problematic on many different levels, Brother Shanadu.
It is, because we also shouldn't assume, like I'll go to College Board, but I'm going to start with what Governor Ron DeSantis did in Florida. We can't also assume that it was only Black students taking these AP classes. When you think of what is going on now, it is, and I like to connect it all. I don't think these people who are doing this, and this is my truth, I don't think that they believe in any of this. It is for political clout. We see currently now Rupert Murdoch, who runs News Corporation, which owns Fox News, that they are being sued in litigation for about 1.4 billion US dollars because Tucker Carlson, Laura Ingraham, and the rest of those folks who are on the channel were willingly spewing fake election claims, but they knew that it wasn't true, right? So the reason why I say this, that I'm confused about what's going on and why this is just about political clout and gaslighting, is people are doing these things to stay in political power. And it's a very big danger where we are right now, because remember, diversity, equity, and inclusion is not just about race. It is about gender, sexuality, disability, all of them. And the reason why someone like Dr. Martin Luther King spoke about everybody sitting at the table of brotherhood is because once they successfully come for one, they're going for the next, and the next, and the next, and the next. But I think it's very important that we're poignant that there is this continued concerted effort towards African Americans and what has happened and what is the truth. And the truth is now becoming an optional thought. So the College Board removing an entire office,
right,
is very dangerous, especially in this day and ages where companies are spending upwards of tens of billions to add DEI to their operating systems. So this is kind of telling. The College Board is going back, and you're doing that off of one state.
And I mean, to your point, bro, it's not just doing it, and to add to that, it's doing it off of one state. And there seems to be no one in the room, or at least at the table, to say, hey, this is wrong. There seems to be no one to, and I'm saying, I know there are Black people that work for College Board. So you mean to tell me that everybody, and that maybe they did, and they got outvoted. You know what I mean? The vote was a 9-3, so maybe they were part of the 3 that were outvoted. But the point is that no one is saying, like, this is really wrong. Like, we're setting the wrong precedent. And for people in the city of, for students in the state of Florida to have to undergo this level of, I would say, educational oppression, I mean, it's insane. How do you keep trust? How do you have trust in an institution like the school system if you see them making blatant attacks against your identity, blatant attacks against your history, blatant attacks against your very well-being? How do you have faith and trust in an institution that does that to you? You can't. You really can't.
Yes, and folks say all the time that we must think about the kids. The kids are one of the biggest pawns in this country. Everybody says the kids, but you are withholding information from them, things that happened, things that took place, things. If the movie Hidden Figures never came out, I would have never known about the mathematical acumen of those three women who helped to put somebody on the moon. And those women doing just that can enrich people to believe, people who may come from these disenfranchised backgrounds, to believe that they too can be a mathematician and be an astronaut. When we learned about Kizmika Corbett just a couple of years ago, the young lady from I think the NIH.
The one that was a part of the COVID vaccine.
Who helped to do the COVID vaccine. She was able to supply that. There are people who got to see that in real time and said, you know what? I want to be like that. And I think when you hold out on this, information, you're holding out on the possibilities that this economy, that this country, that this world is dying for.
And I agree with you wholeheartedly, Sinead, wholeheartedly. Let's go to the crew and hear what folks got to say. Crew, y'all talking about it. Let's get your thoughts out there. Janae, you kicking us off to this afternoon. You say spitting and calling it rain. The whitewash is sickening, but it's blatant. We need to have multiple plans. Yeah, we do. I mean, this may kick off, Sinead, as a movement. The movement is already present, but it may give some momentum to the movement of Black parents deciding to homeschool their children because the school system is just not speaking to the interest and to the identity and well-being of the child. So we might see a growth in homeschooling. We might see a growth in Black independent education. We may see a growth in more charter schools popping up. But if the state of Florida has any say into any of these matters, it may go, and I'm trust and believe, folks, I'm not hoping that this happens, but I can see it possibly going into a space where if you decide to homeschool your child, that you might have to suffer some level of penalty for it in the state of Florida. That they may get so petty and upset that you decided to, quote unquote, reject their philosophy that they're going to punish you for it. So that may be the case that we see down in Florida. Janae, appreciate you. Damon, my brother, you say whitewashing, gaslighting, turning a blind eye. It's all ridiculous. Absolutely. Damon, brother, absolutely. Janelle, checking in. You said, recall Clarence Thomas said, I've heard the word diversity quite a few times, and I don't have a clue what it means in the UNC affirmative action admission case last year. Right. So if Justice Thomas don't know what diversity means, but Sinead knows what diversity means, Farajii Muhammad understands what diversity means, we in trouble. If only people think of diversity as Black, not understanding, like you say, sex, not understanding ethnic background, not understanding all of the other complexities of what it means to be diversity, and one of the justices for the Supreme Court don't know what it means, we in trouble. Let me get one more in before we take our next pause. Truth is power, you say, and plus in Florida, he wrote a law that if anyone writes something negative about him, they can be fined if they did not get registered to do so. What is he running? What is DeSantis running down there, boy? He sounds like a fascist. I just don't get it, brother. I just don't get it at all. This is getting way out of the box. Here's the thing, Sinead, before we take our next pause. How do Black folks respond? Black parents respond, even Black students respond. You work in a space of educational and academic achievement. You actually work in a space of also teaching students to speak up and carve out a voice when social issues like this come up. So what would you advise the next generation to do about this and their parents?
I think you don't run from the education. This is actually, in my opinion, more momentum for there to be more education. We have to shirk away these repercussions. I think parents need to get more involved with their children's. I think we need to get to a place as Black folk, especially middle-class Black folk, where you put down that I want to move up in the workforce and pay attention to your kids. Because for every extra $100,000 you get on your paycheck, it takes you further and further and further away from being completely focused on what the hell is happening with your kids. And furthermore, I have a very interesting suggestion that is just repeating something that worked. I think some of these very great, notable Black organizations should do something kind of in that mirrors what another organization did. When Nick Cannon spoke in anti-Semitic words, when Whoopi Goldberg spoke in anti-Semitic words, I think it's, I can't remember the name of the organization, but one of those organizations came and they gave some guidance on what needed to be done, as well as reached out to the Black organizations to make sure that they were condemning those statements. Now it's their turn. If hate is hate everywhere, I think it's time for the major Black organizations to reach out to these other ally organizations that say that they stand up for truth to power and they're here to be anti-hate and love for all and so on and so forth. It's time for other big named organizations that are not African-American based to say something and condemn these deplorable acts. I'm waiting to see if that will take place.
Absolutely, bro. And that's why I'm thinking that's why we need to have this, that's why we're having this conversation on this platform to engage and to let more people know. Jawan, you checking out, you said my daughter doesn't even have kids yet, but she's already planning to homeschool just in case DeSantis' crazy policy spread outside of Florida. Right. In those Republican-led states, Brother Shanayu, that might be the situation. He has been the drum major on a lot of this, on this culture war that we see ourselves in with this dude. And it might be a situation where now other states might just start to adopt, say with Mississippi or other states that are fighting against Black history. They might say, you know what, we're going to make sure that our curriculum doesn't include other elements of diversity as well. And immediately you checked in and said something. Look, you said Hawaii just imagine living for Ron DeSantis comes up with great things every day. We gotta ask ourselves the question. I remember it, but I said this sometimes there's been a big migration of Black folks as a result of COVID and opportunities for lack thereof from some of these major cities into the southern parts of the country. And Shanae, we have seen more Black people than two most popular states in the country right now. The state of Texas and the state of Florida. Both of these states are Republican in their leadership. Both of these states have policies that disenfranchise Black people and Black voters in significant ways. And yet Black folks have moved to these states. Like in Florida.
When you talk about Blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Your money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Black Star Network is here.
punch.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate Black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear. When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear. Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told. Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Hey, Black, I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Pull up.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. We truly apologize for the technical difficulties with our audio, and hopefully we can get those things fixed up so we can continue to have the great conversation with my brother, Sinedu Okorafor, who is a diversity, equity, and inclusion specialist, as we've been talking about the issue of DEI. And let's bring Brother Sinedu back into the frame here. Brother Sinedu, thank you for your patience as we try to get through these this little technical difficulty, bro. But just very quickly, before we move on, I wanted to get your take on a second subject, but just very quickly, you were mentioning what's the next step here in looking at College Board, as some folks are already alluding, that they may decide to pull their students, you know, that Black folks might pull, Black parents may pull Black children from the classrooms, and then more importantly, the great concern that this type of policy may spread into other states. What's your response to that, bro?
Yeah, that is going to happen. So I think it's important that the states where it hasn't spread to, that they protect the rights of what they have, and more importantly, if folks are, listen, numbers don't lie. If folks are as upset and disheveled in mass, make sure your votes match how you feel. This man wants to be the president of your country, DeSantis in particular. So we have to be careful and do our democratic duty, if you will. But I mean, when it comes to this, the next steps truly and honestly is, I don't know how to say this in any other terms. You have to keep educating the kids. I mean, you have to resist, regardless of what they're doing. And I think compared to during the civil rights era, resist, lose your job, take them to court. Like, I hate to say it like that, but it is important that educators, as an educator, you have your own Hippocratic oath, if you will, and it's to get the truth to the masses. So I believe that teachers should continue to teach, and they should not let this deter them, because the information is important, and there's creative ways to do it as well. And I hope that some of the Black groups, NAACP and stuff of that nature, they plan to take this to court.
I hope that we're going to see something, real power behind this. I mean, we already know who DeSantis is, what he stands for, but more importantly, I really hope we're going to address this in a very big manner. But here's the thing, though, I don't just want to take it to court, because I mean, that's a legal process. It may take us months, hell, it might take years to address that. You got the next presidential election in 2024. We got the next school year starts in September of 2023. You know what I mean? So we got a lot at stake, and we have a very short period of time. Now, this is March of 2023. I'm looking forward to, okay, what does September bring? What will happen come September for the new school year? So it's for me, it's like we only have very little time to try to create some difference or try to create a change in this. And the culture war has gotten so, I mean, like Damon had said earlier, there's so much gaslighting to this culture war that I just feel like at this point, if we don't make a drastic move, if we're not trying to jump into something quickly, we may not have the opportunity to do it next time, and we can't wait. We just can't wait. So I appreciate you making that point, bro. But I don't know. I think that if we are in Republican-led states, if folks are in Republican-led states, start looking at it. Start looking at where these states are going, because Florida serves as the driver, and that's the unfortunate part. Florida serves as the driver, and with so many of our people down in Florida, I don't see no relief in sight, Sinead. You know what I mean? I think DeSantis is going to keep coming with these crazy ass policies, man.
Totally agree. Unfortunately.
Yeah, it's just, I just don't see it. I don't see it at all. So, we're going to certainly keep our eyes on this. I'm so happy that, we're able to share some thoughts on it. And we're going to, just keep folks posted. But I think there's going to be another conversation as we kind of move forward over these next couple of months about whether Black parents should take Black students out of the state of Florida schools. That's going to be the big conversation up next. Brother Shanadu, I know our time has been crazy today with our interruptions, but I truly, truly appreciate the few moments that you were able to spend with us this afternoon. We're going to take a quick pause. When we come forward, we're going to shift gears. Stay with us, folks. More conversation here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen shootings.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear. Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punching! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told. Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Hey, Black, I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home. You dig?
Pull up a chair. Take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Farajii Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home. You dig?
Hatred.
All right, folks, welcome to The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for joining us in the conversation today. Wanted to have a first conversation with all of you, my online culture crew, and big shout out to my online culture crew. Yes, 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 and y'all know how I'm feeling about you, and I appreciate y'all so much for joining us today for these discussions. But first and foremost, big shout out to all of those who've submitted some information for us about our segment. I'm going to talk a little bit more later on about our segment, but thank you for those submissions that we just received over the weekend. Absolutely fantastic. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So let's jump right into these conversations, folks, because I'm watching how this story is continuing to develop around the attack on Paul Pelosi, the husband of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, that happened just a few days ago in San Francisco. And when we look at the attack, folks, here, take a look at this. His attack highlights rising fears of political violence. And this is what I want to key in on. This is what I want to key in on. Nancy Pelosi has been the target of GOP threats for at least 20 years. She is probably the most powerful woman in the Democratic Party. She's been in a stalwart of democracy, of democratic politics for years. And so she has often been the brunt of threats from GOP, but nothing quite like this. Now, we saw on January the 6th when those pro-Trump rally participants, stormed the Capitol, calling for Nancy Pelosi, along with other lawmakers, but they were calling for Nancy Pelosi and essentially calling for her death. And we also know that there have been a number of protesters who entered her office on that day to try to just damage the office as much as he can. And then on the flip side, while all that was happening, we have now seen the footage of Nancy Pelosi being in that undisclosed location while all this is going on with Chuck Schumer and other lawmakers, and how she was moving around, trying to get things done, trying to make sure that other people in Congress, in both the Senate and the House, were staying safe as a result of that situation. So she's always kind of had this threat looming over her. But again, nothing quite like this. This strikes home, and I'm not using that as a pun, but I'm just saying it is so close because it's in your residence. And we talked about a little bit of this last week, how this is so scary. Can you imagine someone coming into your home doing damage like this? Now there's more details about what happened when 42-year-old David Pape decided to go into the home of Paul and Nancy Pelosi in San Francisco. And actually, Mr. Pelosi was actually injured. He suffered a skull fracture. He had to get surgery done. in San Francisco over the weekend. But can you imagine you as the police officer being called to the home of the Pelosi residence, seeing this situation play out? You get there, and before the suspect decides to give himself up and surrender, he attacks Paul Pelosi with a hammer right there in front of the police. So, and of course, he almost beats him to death. Prior to that moment of the attack, he was calling for Nancy and saying, "Where's Nancy? Where's Nancy?" And they found that David Pape is the conspiracy theorist. He's a far right winger. He's a guy who has been drinking the Kool-Aid, as they say, about Nancy Pelosi, about the state of our economy, the state of our politics, of our political space, and so much more. So this is so concerning on so many levels. But I want to share with you what the reports have said about this situation, because this is just one, and this is a very horrific attack. And it's, again, you know, it's something that Mr. Pelosi did not, was fatally wounded in this attack, but he's 82 years old. He gets hit in the head with a hammer. So I know there's great concern about him being able to really fully recover from this attack. But this is just one of a number of attacks on this situation. Let me just share with you what we learned about this ongoing rising political violence that we're seeing in this country. And here it is. Take a look at this, folks. In a review by the New York Times earlier this year of more than 75 indictments of people charged with threatening lawmakers since 2016, more than a third of the cases involve Republican or pro-Trump individuals threatening Democrats or Republicans they found insufficiently loyal to the former president. Nearly a quarter of the cases were Democrats threatening Republicans, many of them threats driven by anger over lawmaker support for Mr. Trump and his policies, including Republican attempts to appeal the Affordable Care Act and one of his Supreme Court nominees, Brett Kavanaugh. Wow. So we're seeing this, folks. We are really seeing a situation here where there are these attacks. All right, I'm going to go to you, my online culture crew, to get your thoughts on this in a moment. But I wanted to share this with you, and then we'll hear from you. Take a look at this quote. This is from an associate professor at Chapman University who has studied extremist groups and violence for more than 20 years. His name is Peter Simi. And Peter Simi said, quote, when we see things like what we saw happen last night, and this was last week he spoke on this, at the speaker's home, when we see things like plots to kidnap governors, this is what's related to the governor of Michigan, when we see overt acts ramping up, we saw that on January 6th, we see, frankly, take a look at what he said, folks. He said, we see, frankly, a whole host of indicators suggesting that we're really at a crisis point. This is why I wanted to pull this quote, because I wanted us to really think about this. We are at a crisis point in our politics right now, that folks are seeking out lawmakers simply because they disagree, simply because, and this is not a simple thing. I'm not going to say simply. I also say because they disagree, because they don't like the direction that these lawmakers are taking on various issues. They are seeking out lawmakers, folks, and they're looking to hurt them or outright kill them. Very, very scary. And when we think about other countries, when we think about what's going on in the Middle East and how they handle things, when we think about the continent of Africa, when we think about other countries where governments constantly go through these constant transitions, right? They use the term stabilizing the government. We want to stabilize the country. Often when America goes into other foreign lands, they use that terminology, this is a stabilization effort, because things are so uncertain, because things are standing on shaky ground. This is the case in America. So we're not talking about overseas anymore. We're talking about America. We're talking about the land of the free, the home of the brave. We're talking about the quote unquote, the most exceptional country in the world. And now we're seeing a little bit more and more each year a rise of political violence. The type of violence that you would see that we would talk about if this was Egypt or the Middle East, the type of violence that we would see in other parts of the world, it's happening here at home. What's your take on this? You should join me in a conversation, post your comments on the platforms that we're streaming on, YouTube, Facebook. I would love to hear what you have to say and get your thoughts on this. And let me just make sure that the suspect in this attack, he was charged with, take a look, folks, assault and attempted kidnapping. Federal prosecutors have actually filed charges on Monday against this man that the police said broke into the House Speaker's home. And these charges were just announced within the last hour. So they are proceeding. They are moving forward with charging David Pape with this, with very, very serious crimes, especially as he committed crimes against a major lawmaker. Now, it was also reported, as we get your thoughts on this, folks, this was reported by The Guardian in July of 2022, where members of the House of Representatives will now receive an upgrade of $10,000 to upgrade their security at their homes. This is what was discussed back in the summer in the face of rising threats against lawmakers. So they put more money into the security efforts to beef up security. But will it matter? People are very creative. They know how to get information off of the online. They know where people live. All of those things. All of those things. All right, let's go to the phone. Let's go to the phone lines, but let's go to the chat line. Radio, folks, radio world. Let's go to the chat lines and hear what folks got to say. Kicking it off with my guy, you don't like my music. You say political violence is called terrorism. Absolutely. Absolutely. This is a form of terrorism. This is a form of terrorism, folks. And if our political officials, and I will say this, if our political officials aren't safe to do their job, right? And people have the quote unquote the gall, they have the tenacity, they have just the confidence to pull off something like this, right? Without fear of consequences. That's the thing. That if you do this, are you going to feel the full brunt and weight of the United States government? David Pape is going to feel the full brunt of and weight of this government as a result of this. But you got to also think about, too, there are a number of Republicans like Marjorie Taylor Greene, and other Republicans who are creating the environment for this. And see, here's the thing, folks. Here's the thing that I don't think a lot of people are thinking about, and y'all tell me what you think. I don't think a lot of people understand that once you let this violence out of the box, it does not go where you think it will go. It does not just stop with one person or one group of people. It spreads. It spreads. You know, it spreads all over. So you might think, oh, I'm immune to it. They won't hurt me. But we don't know. So even for Black folks, we can't say, well, that's a Democrat thing. That's a white thing. This is a thing for everybody to be concerned about, because someone is not happy, will not be happy with a stance that any political leader takes. Whether you're Republican or Democrat, there are Republicans that piss off other Republicans, as there are Democrats that piss off other Democrats. And so when we open a door, when we start to add fuel to the fire and gaslight the situation and say, oh, man, the Republicans are saying stuff now and all of that stuff, you best to be careful, because that might come right to your doorstep. you might be opening the door for you to be attacked. So you don't like my music, you right on time with that. Thank you, bro. Mike V, my guy, you said the right winger who threatened Congressman Omar was also recently sentenced as well. Good point. Mike, thank you for bringing us that into the discussion. Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, a black woman. And I said this last week. So we can say, oh, that's Pelosi and boom, boom, boom. But what if somebody tries to attack the Obamas? Right? What if that happens? What if somebody tries to attack James Clyburn down in South Carolina? Right? What if somebody attacks any one of the black lawmakers? Hell, what if somebody tries to attack Sister Ketanji Brown Jackson? See what I'm saying? See, we can't act as if it can't happen. Now we got to have conversations about this. And as this midterm's getting closer and closer, we're going to have to look at this. Real talk. Mike, thank you for bringing that to the discussion, bro. Real Brooklyn, my guy, you said we are at a crisis point. Absolutely. In the human race. We are heading in territories we have not seen since the Dark Ages. This is some Game of Thrones. And look, I watch Game of Thrones. My wife is a huge Game of Thrones fan. You know what I mean? And this is if you watch the show, it's all about power, right? It's all about what's happening in the 7 kingdoms and who's got the power here and who, but they're always plotting. They're always trying to figure out how to get their hands into power. And guess what? That's what we have seen in other countries when it comes to political violence, right? That one group comes up, they rise up for the moment, and then another group is right there behind them trying to figure out how to get them out of that seat of power. See, in America, we have certain laws in place. We have certain processes in place. We have the checks and balance systems of the House and the Senate, and you got Congress, you got the executive branch, you got the judicial branch. But what if those branches of government start to not do what they're supposed to do, or they only do what they are politically beholden to? What happens then? Then we start to see that you can be violent, a perpetrator of violence. It might not be prosecuted in one case, but then another perpetrator of violence can be prosecuted to the full extent in another case because of their political affiliations. This is the concern. And then once you start to do that, now you do create like a Game of Thrones situation, because now it's like one group versus the other. Well, how many groups in this country, and Real Brooklyn, talk to me on this, bro, and share your thoughts. How many groups in this country are at odds with one another, or could potentially be at odds with one another? Because we got the haves and the have-nots. We got the liberals versus the progressives. We got the Democrats versus the Republicans, right? We got black against white. We got white against this group, right? We got people that live in one area code versus another people that live in another area code. We got states versus state heads. So we got state lawmakers here, state lawmakers there. We got people of one skin color versus you have white Latinos and Afro Latinos. You think about all the differences that can be exploited as a result of us being different, having different ideologies, a different view of ourselves, a different view of the world. You think about all these groups that could be exploited and how they can be gaslit to create a situation where they're going against each other. I want you to think about that. I got to take a quick pause. When we come back, I'm going to take more of your comments. Let's continue to have this conversation. I'm loving the insight that y'all are bringing. So let's continue to have this discussion. Stay with me. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. We've been talking about this case of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and her husband, Paul Pelosi, who has been violently attacked in his home just a few days ago as a result of a pro-right-winger, 42-year-old David Papp, who wanted to do real harm and possibly even kill the House Speaker when he entered their home on a on an early morning this weekend. And it has caused a lot of conversation about where we are in the state of our political affairs in this country. And more importantly, this idea that there is a real concern about the growing epidemic of political violence that we may be seeing in America, a concern that was so far off, I think, from the American psyche and the consciousness that we always thought that we would be protected by some level of civility. We would be protected by the laws. That we would be protected as a result of everything that we have in place. And now we're seeing, and we are at a place, folks, where political officials, political leaders are being being attacked in their home. So let me go back to you, my online culture crew, and get your take on where we are with this situation, because we need to talk about it. We can't brush over this. And I think for Black folks in this country, we cannot get so comfortable in thinking that it would never happen to us. We just can't get comfortable, folks. Again, I'm going back to something in Truth is Power. I saw what you posted as well in the chat, brother. You said, what if it was Michelle or Barack or Maxine Waters? That's a great one. You know, Auntie Maxine in her 80s, still doing the work. But is she a vulnerable target? And I'm trust and believe, folks. I'm not wishing no ill will on anyone. I'm just bringing this up because we should be concerned about it. Corinna, you said something. You said it's unfortunate this has happened, but if January 6th didn't put any urgency under the Democrats to legislate accordingly, then what will, aside from the pressure we the people force upon them? Then what will, aside from the pressure we the people force upon them? Corinna, you know, and I know that you cannot. What we saw on January the 6th is something that I have never seen in my life. I don't think any one of us have ever seen in our lifetime. That situation has to be remedied. There has to be something. And I don't know what it is just yet, but there has to be something that needs to be done to cut the head off of that situation. But you're absolutely right. See, and here's the take, and this is why I say, you know, next week we got our a midterm election. You know, in 2024 we go back to the polls for the president. This is going to be a very challenging time for America over these next 2 years. We already talked about what happened with the polls and how polls are being put on high alert because this election here is so pivotal and potentially volatile. for so many groups of people, for so many states, right? But when we see this warning not fully being taken seriously, we need to be concerned about that. We and even if you don't ride with the Republicans, right? You say, all right, well, I don't ride with the Republicans, nor do I ride with the Democrats. You can't look at a situation like these attacks on Governor Whitmer, Nancy Pelosi's husband, on other people, January 6th, and you can't act like, oh man, that don't bother me. There's no way. How could any one of us say that should not be a concern? This is a great concern because America has always prided itself on its political standing. It's, scholars will call democracy the American experiment, right? Because we're still testing it out. It's still pretty relatively new compared to other forms of government and how America does governance, right? This idea for the people, by the people, the people's will, the people's representative, all of these ideas are genuinely new, right? Because most of them dealt with aristocracy, most of them dealt with some level of dictatorship and all of those things. But this is new, so it's been considered an experiment. So some things work and some things don't work, and we have always been told by President Biden and other presidents that it is the belief in the system, the hope of the people that will determine the success of the system, right? It's what the people put in. Like what I've heard from President Biden, it's like basically, if the democracy will only work if the people get involved. It'll only work if we only will get out of it what we put into it. That's the place that we are with our governance. That if we don't put nothing into it, we're going to get nothing out of it. But then at the same time, we have been lulled to sleep because we have been made to think that the government is going to take care of itself, not really understanding that you can have institutions, you can have policies, but you need the will of the people in order for this whole situation to work, in order for there to be a driver for the institutions, for the policies, for government to work. There needs to be an educated consensus, educated citizenry at the root of everything. There needs to be an active citizenry at the root of everything. So you need the people. But if the people are told that their government officials are the ones to think of all of the ideas, all of the solutions, figure it all out, so we only have a few hundred people in government to dictate the future of millions of us in the United States. Do you think that they can think about every little thing that happens in our lives that's happening as a result of all of these things? Do you think that just a few hundred people can truly do it without us being involved? I mean, just think on this with me. Do you really think that that can happen? Because I don't see that happening. I know that that's what we've been told. I know that's what we've been told to believe, but I'm saying to you today, I don't see that happen without us being fully involved. All right, let's go back. Let's go back. Let me hear from Chris V. Chris, you said, remember back in 2014 when that guy jumped the White House fence and made it all the way to the front door of the White House before getting apprehended? Luckily, the Obamas weren't there. Yes, and Chris, remember how many times, bro, and I'm glad you brought that up. How many times did the Obamas were kind of in near misses of coming in face to face with danger, right? As a result of their situation. How many times do you think that happened? That's probably happened way more. And I mean, I just read a few incidents where that happened, but I'm sure they were hundreds of times Let's not even talk about the fact that when President Obama first got into office in 2018, the rise of guns just exploded as a result of that, because there were all of these folks that foresaw that that his election was going to bring about the end of America. So we saw people getting in bunkers. We saw people getting guns. We saw people joining militias to protect themselves and their families and their assets and their property. And I mean, we see all of this, and this is still happening, folks. Don't think that this is not happening. This is still happening. This is not being reported on the mainstream as it once was, but it's still happening, even with the rise of Trump. These things are still happening. And I'm saying this just not to create a dark world, but to bring us into the light of understanding, so that way we don't think that we're not in the dark about things. All right, let's go back to the, let me hear from Robin. Robin, you said if the House Speaker's husband can be attacked, what will prevent neighbors from attacking neighbors due to a difference in political views? This needs to be taken seriously. Facts. Facts, Robin. Robin, I'm right there with you, sis. I am right there with you. So this situation could potentially open a door for neighbor against neighbor, right? I mean, you know who you're in your neighborhood. Imagine if you do live in a neighborhood. I used to live in a neighborhood where the mayor of Baltimore lived, right in the same neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? But I always crossed my mind, like anybody could. Now, of course, you got police and all of those things. You know, he got police presence and near his home and all of that stuff, but it doesn't mean that somebody wouldn't try. That even those of us who live next to political leadership, we might be an innocent bystander. We might get caught up in the fire. We might, you know what I mean? And so we got to really think about that. Good point. Real Brooklyn, you said, Farajii, I always felt that our total reliance on government is the root of most of our problems. We have given government too much power because of our selfish needs. They are in the driver's seat. Well, that's the part about it, Real Brooklyn. That's the part I think is supposed to be the one of the shiny elements of our democracy, right? That out of a few, out of many come a few can determine and dictate our, what we need to fulfill our interests. And you're right. You're right. I think you said selfish. I want to throw in another word. I think we've gotten lazy. I think we've just gotten lazy in believing that the government is going to continue to, fulfill every single need. And so we don't even really have the desire. I mean, a lot of us, when we talk about government, yes, we talk about government, but we kind of talk about it like outside of its impact on our personal lives, right? When we talk about laws and policy, we're like, man, that's crazy. But we go back to doing our thing, not understanding the implications and ramifications of certain policy until we get into a situation and then it's brought to our attention, whether you buying a house or buying a car or you trying to open up a business or something, or you know what I mean? You trying to file your taxes and then you're like, oh, there's a new tax law, or oh, I didn't know about this, or I didn't know about that. We don't know until it gets there. And I think there's a design effort. I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist here, folks. But I think that to some degree, the powers that be may want us to keep us clouded about what's really going on, because if we wake up to what's going on in our government, if we wake up to the serious issues that our government faces and our government don't tell us the truth about those serious issues, and we're left in the blind, and then the government do us wrong by denying us the truth of the moment. So they're in the blind. So it's the blind leading the blind. And guess what happens? We both fall in the ditch. The government's saying, oh, this is a good thing that we deny the American people the truth about what's going on in this issue and that issue. We got to keep them playing. We got to keep them going to the beach during the summer, keep them going on cookouts. But over here, just this thing is falling apart. Over there, yeah, we're losing the war in this part of the earth. Over here, yeah, the economy, but let's keep them preoccupied. then celebrities are thrown into our face. Then other stuff that keeps us preoccupied. We talking on and I'm not saying that we got to talk hard about the issues every single day, because I get it, trust and believe. I totally understand. But we've gotten to a place here in our culture where we don't even want to have, it's like we have this, don't talk to me. It's like when I see some people, right? And I know some people might feel this way, but I don't agree with it. Some people say, well, I don't watch the news at all. I haven't watched the news, taken in the news, watched the local news, don't watch CNN, don't watch nothing like, I don't watch the news because it's too violent. Okay, I understand that element, but what about just being updated about what's going on in the world? Do you not read the newspaper? Okay, you don't have to watch the news. Do you read any newspapers? You read New York Times, LA Times, USA Today, Baltimore Sun. Do you read the Final Call? Do you read what are you, where are you getting your information? How do you know what's going on in the world around you? How do you know what the urgencies are? How do you keep informed? Or do you just want to live in a bubble? We just want to live in a silo, in a tunnel. I don't want no. If it ain't good news, I don't want it. Well, I wish life was that easy. You know what I'm saying? Life comes with bad news. Life comes with bumps. Life comes with ups and downs. So I get it. But there got to be a balance. You don't have to be a total consumer of the bad, but you at least need to know that bad exists. And if you're in the denial of that bad exists, how can we operate in this world using the best intelligence? How do you teach your children? How do you go through your day if you don't recognize that bad and evil exist in the world? Bigger conversation. Bigger conversation. Corinna, you said add willfully ignorant to lazy. All right, we adding it on. I love it. I love it. So we selfish, we getting lazy, and now we're willfully ignorant. That's why we rely on our government so much. Let me see here. My guy, Charles Magruder, you said, yes, voting is the best tool to save this democratic experiment. It's one of the tools. It's one of the tools. The real best tool for saving democracy is having an educated citizenry. If you don't know how your government works, what are you voting for? If you don't know the implication of decisions, what are you voting for? If you don't know the roles that certain positions play in government, what are you voting for? If you don't understand why certain issues are high priority and why certain issues are low priority, then what are you voting for? See, none of the vote is an outgrowth of education. You vote because you're becoming more of an active, engaged citizen. But if you don't have no reference, if you don't have no base knowledge, if you don't know anything or have an interest of knowing anything about your government, then how can you go to the polls and vote? That's why in every voter campaign, there's that element. The first element is voter education. Well, why do we need voter education? Not just to be told that, oh, Black people have died for your vote, or that people have sacrificed for us to vote, and that's true. But voter education also comes down to who are your representatives? Who are the people that's standing in front of you who are asking for your vote? Why are they saying that this issue is in this issue and this issue is top priority? What does that have? What impact will that have on your personal life, on your money, on your school choices, on your health care? See, if you don't have that level of education, then what are you voting for? If you're just voting just because you think the person is cool, that's all well and good. There's a little bit of cool factor in voting today, but that can't be the basis. Otherwise, you might be voting for somebody that's cool, but against your own interests. You know, people do have an ability today, especially in our culture, to redefine themselves. I never forget. One of the people who served as the communications persons, and I think it was for President Bush, or President Trump, rather. He worked for Trump, and I think his name is Ari Fleischer, but he worked for Trump, and he only worked for him for a couple of years. He decided to leave the role, and then he redefined himself. I think he started writing books. I think he started working in the, the private sector and all of that stuff. And now he wants to be like this guy. And it's like, if you didn't know any better, you would think that a person like him, who is able to redefine himself, is cool because you don't know his history. You don't know his background. That's for anybody that was a part of an administration that wasn't good for the American people, right? They come out, they live for Kellyanne Conway. They can leave and they can redefine themselves, put out a book. You see them as a talking head. They're talking about democracy and all of those things. But what about their history? But if you don't know their history and you vote for a person who is able to redefine themselves when they come before you in public spaces, then you would think you're making a good vote. Oh, come on, no. That's not enough. You have to know as much as you can about who you're voting for, and more importantly, the issues that you're standing for. The last thing about the voting piece, to your point, brother Charles, is you have to have a stance on the issues. Sure, the governor might say it, and the governor of your state might say it, the congressperson might say it, but if you don't know the issues yourself, then what are you voting for? See, that's the voter education. That's the voter education. And so now, as we see this rise of political violence in this country, and as we see scary moments like what happened with the Pelosi attack, we have to be very clear about where we stand, who we're standing with. We got to be clear about what's going on in the country around us. And as we go to the polls, God willing, y'all are going to the polls either this week, if you're doing early voting, doing the next week. But who and what are you voting for? Where do you stand? As adults, those are the big issues that we have to often ask ourselves. This is not the time for us to be on the fence unless we just don't know much about a situation, about an issue. But if you have a view, if you have a stance, and you believe in what you say, you believe in that stance, then guess what? Then you should make your voice known. It's that simple. And we need to be engaged, because this American experiment called democracy will not sustain itself. If you think that America is a place that is worthy to be saved, if you think there are some redeeming value in what we are all a part of, if you think that our children can possibly benefit from all that we are a part of, then I would say, then you should go to vote. You should stand up against certain things. And that we should take this rise of political violence very seriously, because it not only threatens the life of the persons involved, or does it even threaten this comfortable space that we find ourselves in our relationship to our government, but it threatens the sense of sanity and safety that we think we have in this country. And if once that is disrupted, folks, we're about to walk around looking like a bunch of paranoid people where we can't trust our neighbor. We can't talk to the businessman. We can't talk to the person in the school. We're going to start living in silos. And I don't know about you, but I'm not comfortable with living in fear. We got to take a stand. We have to take a stand. So I appreciate all of you for checking in, Karen. You said 100 Farajii. We the people must participate in our local government to elevate change at the state and federal levels beyond voting. Our elected officials need help. Absolutely, Karen. Thank you. Shalinda, you said, well, maybe they should just bring back Schoolhouse Rock. Facts. Facts. Right. Ari Fleischer. Thank you, Joel. My producer checked me. He worked for George W. Bush, not for Trump. Yep. Thank you, sir. Absolutely. Absolutely. So these are the things that we need to consider. And I just wanted to throw it out there so that way we can become engaged and educated citizens and not just walking around here hoping, wishing upon a star, thinking some mystery God is going to save us. If anybody's going to save this American experiment, well, it's going to be Americans. All right, folks, we got to take a quick pause.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Let's talk a little bit about change, and that's to go into the world of Afrofuturism. And I know, B, I wanted to have this conversation with you because this is your wheelhouse, right? This is what you love. You actually have created through your music, through the films that you are working on. This is important that we have a discussion to look at this idea of Afrofuturism, right? Like, what does Black people look like in the future? What does that mean, right? And so when we look at Black Panther, even though it's a product of a larger, major, Marvel Studios, right? We see Black Panther, but I think it speaks to where there is this sentiment of what is the future of Black folks. And this is the beautiful thing I think about like Black Panther, the whole idea. Of course, the movie came out Friday. Here's the numbers around this, folks. Take a look at this. Just check this out. $180 million in its opening weekend. Y'all, I want y'all to understand. I want y'all to understand how powerful.
Domestically.
That's domestically. 330 million globally.
Right.
Now, here's the thing, though, folks. Just to put this in perspective, some movies are out weeks at a time, where they work up to 330 million, say after 3-4 weeks in the theaters, right? 330 million, that's their final, that's like their final number. This is the first number. And so we're seeing something, B and Brother Michael, that I don't know whether it's because of the late, great Chadwick Boseman. Folks wanted to see how the movie was going to play around, how the movie is going to speak to that. If it's because of Afrofuturism, because there is a number of conversations about the value and significance, B, of course, of this new reality. But what do you make of it? What do you make of it? And then let's talk about the politics behind it. But what do you make of the success of this second film without its main character?
Black Panther was always more than just Black Panther. Like when we are focusing on the idea of Wakanda, when we focus on the idea of a Black world, it's more than just one person. All right. So kudos to Black people around the globe for being able to understand that. Kudos to the director, to the production company, you know, to who is able to understand that, you know? And so what we have here, Farajii, is not necessarily a phenomenon, all right? This is what we do. We show up, we show out. Our dollars reign supreme. There is no dollar that is stronger than the Black dollar, all right? That's why it's important for us to be able to circulate it. And that's why it's important for our enemy to get it out of our community. All right. Because there is no dollar that's stronger than ours. So what I see, you know, is deeper than us going to see this film. You know, the beauty of Afrofuturism, you know, is a 360 component, because we don't just go to see it. All right. We go to be it.
Oh, there we go. I'm feeling that one.
Okay. So that is the essence of Afrofuturism, and it is not new. Okay. It's not new. It's just true. If you ever marvel at the survivability of Black people, you can blame Afrofuturism. There is no future without Black people, the way there was no planet without Black people. So, you know, so let's just start it there. You know, the revolutionary act of Afrofuturism, you know, goes along with Black sci-fi. It's important within our white supremacist culture, you know, to understand where we exist separate and distinct from that culture. All right.
Yeah.
So when we deal with the difference between sci-fi and Black sci-fi, all right, there's a thread of a lifestyle that is not, you're not on another planet. You're literally here on Earth dealing with the effects of slavery, dealing with the effects of the transatlantic slave trade, dealing with the balance of this power that's within all of us, you know? So it's like, so I think the part that we connect with in reference to the film and Afrofuturism, you know, is we are spirit, we are mind, we are body. Afrofuturism, Black sci-fi includes all of these. Like we're not in space dealing with this. We're on Saratoga, we're on Crenshaw, we're on 88th and Vine, you know, dealing with actualizing our future. Because, you know, unlike our counterparts, we are literally still here in a hostage situation and have to explain it every day.
Right.
This time travel that we are forced into from the moment we wake up, you know, it is a part of all of our Afrofuturistic lifestyles, you know? So I argue that Afrofuturism is not a genre, is not literature. It is how we survive the unsurvivable, because that's literally what we do every day.
I love it. Hey, B, I'm all in it. I'm all in it. And you are the first person, just for full transparency, I never really considered Afrofuturism until I actually literally met you and Riz, your husband. Like, and folks, when I'm saying that for real, because, you know, you don't, again, this idea of a Black future. Y'all remember the Jetsons? There were no Black folks in the Jetsons, man. There was no Black folks in the Jetsons in the future.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so when you're talking about a Black future with a world full of technology, when you're talking about a future with the world full of power, when you're talking about a future with the world full of organized structure, you don't necessarily, and this is because of the conditioning that we as Black folks in this country have undergone, we don't see Black people being a part of that world. That's just right. And I know people say, well, it's been in the comic books for years, but you're right. But this is a whole different level. Once you bring something from the books into film, right, it's felt on a different level. And brother Michael, I want to get your take on this because yes, you know, the Rolling Stone just put out a piece earlier today. It says Black Panther: Wakanda Forever isn't just a sequel, it's an MCU geopolitical game changer. Look at this. That's our sister Letitia Wright playing Shuri during the funeral of T'Challa in the film. Right. They said that Ryan Coogler's blockbuster draws from the comic superhero mythos and real-life revolutions to make a strong anti-colonialist argument. It also resets the cinematic universe's political balance in a big way. Now, here's the funny part about this, Brother Michael, and you rocking the shirt. But here's the funny part about this. I've actually seen Black scholars who say that this film is trash politically.
Well, they ain't do their research. That's part of the problem. So let me preface this by saying I did 3 months of research on the film Black Panther and the Black Panther comic book before I did my lectures on the film Black Panther, because I have lectures that I've done on the film. One of them was almost 3 hours, and it's available on my website, theafricanhistorynetwork.com. So I did deep research because after I saw the film in February 2018, even though at the time I've been studying history, 25 years or 26 years at the time, I knew I was not qualified to do lectures on the film and really talk about the film. So I did deep research. Everybody was not that responsible. Let me put it politely like that, to do that. So first of all, when we do Afrofuturism, we're dealing with science fiction and fantasy meeting cultures of the African diaspora. And we see this represented in the film. Now, Wakanda, even though it's a fictitious place, a fictitious African country in Central East Africa, and over time, the location changes, but it's somewhere around Rwanda, Uganda. Even though it's a fictitious African country, Wakanda is a real word. We see Wakanda in the Omaha Ponca and Sioux Indian Native American languages. It means possesses secret powers. It's also in the Osage language as well, and it's in reference to the Osage god, their deity. Okay, Wakanda. There are different spellings of it. One of the most popular is Wakanda, which you see in the film. In Wisconsin, there is a Wakanda water park in Wisconsin. It's spelled the same way as in the movie. It's been there for decades. There are schools across the country, like in Nebraska, named Wakanda. Now, it's also a Kikongo word. Kikongo is a Bantu language. And in Kikongo, it's in reference to family. One of the things that's so important about the film is that when we look at Wakanda in the movie, the world thinks that Wakanda is a third world country, but Wakanda uses technology to hide the fact of how technologically advanced that they are, to keep colonizers from coming in and plundering them and raping the country. Okay, so one of the reasons why the film, the first one, did so well, and it was #1 for 5 weeks here in the U.S. and did $1.4 billion worldwide, is because it wasn't another slave movie. #1. And even though slavery is part of our history, ain't the only part of our history. #2, we got to see African people controlling a nation, controlling natural resources. We got to see 11 different African cultures infused into the film Black Panther. So Ruth Carter, who's the costume designer, and she was also the costume designer on the film Malcolm X. She studied African cultures for 6 months and infused 11 different African cultures into the film. So we see the Mercy from Ethiopia in there. We see the Zulu from South Africa. Queen Ramonda, played by Angela Bassett, the hat that she wears, the flat hat, That's from the Zulu. That's a hat that Zulu women wear, and it was largely Zulu royalty or wealthy women that will wear it. The rings that we see the Dora Milaje wear around their necks, okay, that's from an African culture as well. And the Dora Milaje, who are the Dora Milaje means it means I forget, the adored ones. Dora Milaje means the adored ones, the African female warriors. They're based upon the Ogoji or the Ohozi in Dahomey. That's where they come from. Their costumes are inspired by the Maasai of Kenya. So when you look at the Maasai in Kenya, you'll see how their costumes reflect that. So it's a powerful movie, and you can use if you understand history, you can use the film Black Panther to teach African history to our people, teach it to our children. Because I did a lecture I did a presentation to 65th through 12th graders and their teachers, and broke down the film and the African cultural influences in the film and how it relates to history. And I was explaining to the teachers how they can use the enthusiasm of the film Black Panther to teach African history and African American history to their children. Okay, and I saw the new film on Saturday, and one of the big things, one of the most important things about this also is that different African American organizations have been buying out theaters and using this as fundraisers also. So in 2018, a lot of Simple Simon ass people on social media said, "Oh, Disney making all this movie, black people ain't making no money." No, black people made money off of it then, and they're making money off of it now. You just didn't make any money. You didn't position yourself properly. Okay, success is where preparation meets opportunity. I taught entrepreneurship for 7 years. My degree's in business administration. It's not in history. I'm a historian, but my degree is in business. Okay, success is where preparation meets opportunity. You knew the movie was coming out for like 4 or 6 years, so you didn't position yourself properly. The new movie is phenomenal, and it brings into it another aspect when we do a Mesoamerican culture, Latino culture. When we deal with Tanakh Hereta, who plays Prince Namor. And in the comic books, Namor was whiter than white. But here you get another indigenous culture as well. And I'm not going to give away no spoilers, but there's a scene where he talks about how, in this movie, we find out that vibranium exists in his underworld country as well. Okay. Yep. And he talks about how now the world has found out about this, and now we have to protect ourselves from colonizers coming to take the natural resource, coming to take the vibranium from his world as well. Okay. So it brings into this dynamic of colonizers colonizing and attacking indigenous people, Africans, Mesoamerica, the Aztecs, things like this. And there's an Aztec influence that we see in the film also. So it's a powerful movie. It's not perfect. None of these movies are. So the naysayers, if you don't like it, go make your own damn movie. But you ain't gonna.